Yeah, thanks, Matt. Appreciate that, and appreciate everybody joining us today. Just talk a little about the this recruiting class. Obviously, very excited. Signing day is always a special day. It's a little anticlimactic in this day and age with the way things have changed in recruiting. I'll address that in a second, but I just want to backtrack 1 second and go back to Monday's comments. I'm always interested. I do look at there's a site, Football Scoop. So I'm always interested how things get filtered as you go to I guess you call that a national publication. But just for the record, I said I've made 3 phone calls. Never said I talked to 3 candidates. 3 phone calls regarding this whole process. And then the other thing, just for clarification, it sounds like there's some speculation. I was not referencing anybody that's been a head coach in the Big Ten. I was actually referencing a coordinator that's come into our conference sometime in the last decade. And my point was this: there's at least there's reported to be there was a quote on Einstein's office in his he had an office at Princeton that said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And that was kind of my point. The person I'm thinking about specifically had a lot of passing yards on his resume, pretty well known nationally. But you dig a little deeper, you look at his, what the win total was, where he's been, and I think that is an important statistic, the most important one there is. So that's a reference I was trying to make, but it was not in reference to anybody that's been a sitting head coach in the Big Ten. Just wanted to clarify that. So anyway, so let's get on to business. I just want to talk briefly about the recruits. Turn it over to Tyler, who knows all the all the details on each and every one of the guys that we have signed. And right now we have 20 that are signed. One will sign this afternoon when his mom's able to free up from work and get that done. So just, really pleased about the class. As I suggested, the process has changed immensely in the last several years, most namely when they started the official visits in the springtime through June. So that's really caused a shift. So at least for us, historically, the majority of our class, has been pretty well settled by July, I would say. Tyler can give the exact details, but typically there's not a lot of drama. The guys that do decide on us typically stay with us, and we stay with them. So, hopefully it's a good mutual fit. But as much as the process has changed, I think what we consider to be important really hasn't changed. Obviously, every prospect, we're looking for a degree of athleticism at their position. We may not be as picky on heights or body weights some places, but we're looking for a certain level of athleticism. Obviously, the competitive nature of that player is really important to us. How aggressive do they play? How much do they look like they enjoy it and really enjoy being out there? How much do they enjoy competing? Those things are important to us. I've never been around a good player that didn't have a high level of pride, and with that, a high level of just a really strong work ethic. Because it's hard to do anything and be good at anything. It's difficult to do, if you don't have those traits. So I think those are things that we also try to uncover, look for that type of deal. And then I think the other thing that's really tough for, important for a prospect, any player, certainly the guys in our program and most of the guys that were honored at our banquet a couple of weeks ago, the guys that were with you on Monday, are examples of this. You got to have a level of patience too, and realize that if you got a growth mindset, you're going to keep getting better. So your best football is always ahead of you, and sometimes you may be behind another player that's pretty good too. So you just keep working at it. Jay Higgins is a great example. Played behind Jack Campbell last year, but when he did have a chance to play, he played extraordinarily well. And I think we were all confident he played well this year. None of us probably could have expected the kind of numbers that he's put out. So he certainly exceeded everybody's expectations there. But it's really not a surprise because if you're around Jay day to day, you just understand how he operates, and the good things that have come his way are things that he's earned on his own. Hopefully we give him good structure, but the players are the ones that put the work into it. So, those are the things we're trying to look for. We still prefer to build our team, and things have changed in the world also this way, but prefer to build our team through our high school recruiting. Certainly, we're going to try to bolster our roster through the transfer portal. I think it only makes sense. It was really good to us last year and years forward. Hopefully, it will be as well. And we may be active a little bit in the new year in that department. But as most of you know, we really haven't had a lot of roster turnover, so it's not like we got a lot of room right now. But we'll keep an eye out and be mindful there and do whatever we can moving forward. So, just in rough terms, I know Tyler will go through this, but basically a third of our signees are from our state, another third from the surrounding states, and then two guys from, one from Ohio, one from Indiana, a couple states over, and then in the outlying areas, you got Texas, Arizona, Florida represented, and even Australia. LeVar made the trip over there last week, and we feel really good about that as well. So that hasn't changed a great deal. Every guy's a captain. Every guy's a multi-sport athlete. Some guys more than multi. A couple guys are three and two or four actually sport athletes. So those things remain important to us as well. And just overall feel really good about the class. Appreciate everybody's hard work, everybody on campus, not just in the department, but faculty members, everybody that helps make the cause well. Our fans add a lot to it. When players come to games here, they're extremely impressed being in Kinnick and seeing the fan support that we receive. So that's important for us. And it's really just a team effort, quite frankly. So we're really appreciative of that, most appreciative of the recruits and their families, just demonstrating their confidence in us and our program. So excited to get them here whenever that time may be. And in the meantime, we'll just keep pushing forward here, but I'll throw it out for questions and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you, Coach. Like Coach said, we'll take a handful of questions before we get to Tyler Barnes. First question, Coach, comes from Chad Leistico from the Des Moines Register. Chad?
Hey there. We didn't get all the questions in probably the other day we wanted to. So how's the health of the offensive line look like on the depth chart, which I know you love to talk about? Logan Jones was not on there. Is he out for the game? Jennings Dunker, other guys like that.
Yeah, I think I did that depth chart, feels like 8 weeks ago, but probably 2 or 3. We're back practicing right now, and knock on wood, right now everybody's healthy. Everybody's good to go. Logan's doing well. Dunk's doing good. So, yeah, right now, good. So far, so good.
Okay, next question, Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Report.
Hey, Kirk. I know neither of us are math majors, but looking at your scholarship numbers, it's pretty tight, and you've got guys that could potentially come back for the COVID year. How are you guys kind of managing and massaging this whole situation right now?
Yeah, probably like everybody else in the country, that's always an issue. I think we have a fairly healthy projection on what's going to happen both ways. So we feel pretty comfortable about where we're at. And but yeah, that's an issue for everybody. It's much talked about in Division One right now. Roster management's gotten very tricky with the portal, transfers in, transfers out, all those kinds of things. And then typically every year you have some attrition from January to August. Can't remember a year where that wasn't true. And we probably have a medical or two, medical case or two that are being reviewed right now on top of that. So, yeah, it's kind of like tickets during the week. I always tell Rita, it'll work out. Don't worry about it. It usually does, but we're still pretty cautious about how we operate that way.
Elliot Clough, Rivals.com.
Hey, good afternoon, Kirk. Appreciate you taking some time today. One guy that I know has gotten a lot of positive feedback on social media and stuff like that based on his film is Gavin Hoffman. I know you were there for his in-home visit. Can you just tell me what exactly stuck out to you during his recruitment about him and what why you wanted to make him a Hawkeye, I guess?
I think first and foremost is probably his attitude. He's just a very eager, anxious guy. He's a good football player, good athlete, football, basketball. But his attitude, he loves the game. He's got a personality, and not that that's everything, certainly, but because every player is different. Josie Jewell would just look at you and then look through you. There weren't a lot of smiles with Josie, that's for sure. So, not one size fits all, but I think Gavin's got real enthusiasm for the game. He's got a good skill set. We think great growth potential. And so he has a lot of the characteristics of guys that have come here pretty much unheralded. And I'm not saying he's unheralded. That's not the case. But the guys that have really grown and developed in our system. And we think he checks a lot of those boxes. He's a little bit more heavily recruited than some of the guys, maybe that, I'm referencing that way, but yeah, we just liked everything about them.
John Steppy, the Gazette.
Hi, Kirk. Two questions. First one with the offensive guys. What was kind of your message these last few months to them with not having an OC yet in place? And then totally unrelated, what kind of stood out to you about these three linebackers, three in-state guys that didn't seem to have the highest ratings, but look pretty talented?
Yeah, the football question, I'll handle that first. Brian's been here throughout this entire period, shows up every day, totally committed to the program. He's a former player. He's got a lot of years associated with the program. So there's no question I don't ask him daily, what's his motivation, but I don't want to speak for other people either, but I'm pretty sure he's doing it because he's part of this program, cares deeply about the people involved, and particularly our players, so it's a non-issue. We're just proceeding on a daily basis, and the encouragement we give them right now is the same as it was in August. Let's just focus on getting better every day. We're getting a little healthier where that's possible, and seeing a lot of improvement from a lot of players, and that's encouraging. That's one of the great things about December. And then, the three linebackers, it feels like we've been recruiting them, I swear, for like 4 years. Basically, I don't think anybody's further than 60 miles from here. Can't tell you how many times they've been on campus for practices, spring practice. This past weekend, they were all here. And I felt like a year ago they could have just slid right into our room and fit in beautifully with the guys that we have. So just like their attitudes, they all have different skill sets, and they all have different personalities, but they're just all, I think, very committed to being good football players. I think them, being here on the field a couple of years ago and watching guys like Campbell, watching guys like Benson work. Now they get to see Higgins and Nick Jackson. And I just think they felt like the mesh was perfect. We certainly felt that way. And, just very high on all three of them. Just really like their attitude, their seriousness. Like they're all tough, competitive guys. And then, the irony is, and, good luck this happening again. But like I said, you got three guys in a 60-mile radius. So that certainly helps. I wish we had about 50 prospects within a 60-mile radius. It'd be really good.
Okay, Coach, two more questions. First, we'll start with Adam Jacoby, Rivals.com.
Coach, I appreciate your time. You mentioned that this is sort of a changing recruiting landscape, but you look at this class, and with the exception of the punter that you got a couple days ago, it was essentially complete by the middle of summer. Is that something you expected to have happen once you started to get the recruits, and then once they were pretty much on board? Did you think it was going to be as drama-free getting to here as it has been?
Good question. It's kind of funny because my exposure to our outside worlds when I come to work or leave, it's either the college station or the NFL station. And this morning I had the college station on, heard about all the drama and, stuff going on and guys waffling. I guess we just don't live in that world. We really haven't had much of that for quite some time. And typically it doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's just, it seems like the way we recruit, we end up uncovering guys that, we feel good about. And then typically if they commit, and we ask them, don't commit if you really don't mean it. And again, there's exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, when guys do commit and the parents are involved and everybody's on board, you don't have to ride that roller coaster. We really haven't done much of that. And I'm not saying that's foreshadowing of a bad college career, but I don't mind telling you, it would be a concern for me, not a deal breaker, but a concern. If any of our coaches come in and start talking about a guy that's been in 3 high schools in 3 years, those kinds of things are just things you need to get answers for, I think, because, the best way to predict the future still is to understand the past a little bit. Sometimes there are very valid reasons why things happen. And I think of an example a couple of years back, but, if there's not a good reason and you're seeing some things that maybe alert you, chances are they're not going to work well here because our goal is to get our guys here. Our number one program goal still is for our guys to graduate. Had a bunch of guys do it last Saturday. A bunch of guys did it last May. We'll have a bunch more here in the May term. So the guys that end up in the program, they typically graduate, and that's our number one program goal. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I know this: if you don't stay at Iowa, you can't graduate from Iowa. So, it is important to us that we're we try to be very transparent, make sure they get a good picture of what it's going to be like when they get here. And so there are no surprises. And then hopefully they get the work ethic that it takes to stay in the program and become a really good football player.
Okay, Coach, last question for you. Scott Docterman, The Athletic.
Kirk, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Cody Fox and also kind of alongside those three other linebackers. They've all committed a year and a half ago. And so just to keep them that in the fold, how did you do it? And then also with Cody Fox, are you surprised 3 years it seems like he's been committed to you, not one waiver?
Yeah, that's, Scott, I mean, that's scary. I got to tell you, when you offer guys that young and, they commit to you, it's like, oh boy, hope we're right. And that, everything that we've learned about Cody and seen him do since that time is what, what we hoped we were going to see. But, the rest of that story too is that, we've known his family for quite some time. His older brother was here, just graduated. So a year ago graduated and, did a great job in our program. So, we knew the family, think we knew we were getting there. Cody had been to camp a couple of times, just impressed the heck out of us. Really, really competitive guy, tough guy. And we've also had some luck in that high school. It's been really good to us too, historically. So, we were, again, confident that, we had a pretty good idea what we're getting. A little bit like Aaron Graves, prior to that, who committed at a really young age. But Aaron's such an exceptional young guy. And then the same thing with the linebackers again. I don't think any of those guys, I don't want to speak for any of them, but I don't think they ever gave it a thought about, a different school or any of that kind of stuff. It was pretty good mesh right from the start. And again, we don't encourage guys to commit unless they really mean it and they're sure, and the parents have to be sure too. And, all four of those young guys have been steady, as have their families. So I appreciate that. That's how you try to build a program. You got to have some really good cornerstones, build a foundation with guys. And it was that way in the 80s too. You build a foundation, I think, with in-state players that really understand the program. They have a great appreciation for the history of the program. And then they help educate, guys that maybe aren't quite as familiar as they come in. And it's worked out pretty well for us over time.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on your signing class today and safe travels down to Orlando.
Appreciate it. We'll let Tower take it from here. Thank you.
You got it.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. Floor is yours, Tyler.
Awesome. I'll hit a few points. I don't want to echo too much what Coach said before I open it up for questions, but just like every year, it's always 2.5, 3 years in the making with our coaching staff hitting the road, digging up these guys, recruiting these guys, developing relationships, going back to the cornerstone of the core four, as I saw Scott tweet about earlier. With Cody Fox, it's 2.5 years ago that he committed to us, which seems kind of crazy when you think about. But given that history, it's nothing too wild. And then, shortly after, Cam Buffington joined the crew, and then about 6 months post, we had, Preston and Derek joined the crew, and it's kind of been rolling from there all the way up through. I know everybody thinks that Reid Dakin committed just a few days ago. We've known about Reid now for about 4 months, but we'll let you guys think it was a few days ago. But just a couple things I want to hit. Obviously we signed 20 guys today. We'll sign our 21st here probably in a couple of hours. And then we've also added 10 walk-ons onto our roster. And at that point, we're pretty much done. As Coach said, we'll kind of keep an eye open in the portal here in the coming months. We're also waiting on decisions from 6 different players on our current roster. So it's always fluid. I think history would tell you in the past from January through August, we always lose a handful of guys. So the roster management piece has certainly become a little bit different in this day and age, especially with the COVID guys, which we've got 1 more year of COVID guys next year. And as much as I love all these guys and I want them back, I can't wait for the COVID stuff to go away. It makes my job just a little bit easier. It's fluid anyways. It's extremely fluid when you throw in that little factor. But, just talking about our class, one thing that I think is really unique, I think it was 2 years ago in June, We had a horrendous June official visit month. I think it was well documented by some people on here, and rightfully so. One thing that I think is pretty impressive, we brought in 22 official visitors this June, and 21 committed to us. So we've really been done since the end of June. A few guys put out their commitments a little bit later in July, but basically the Monday following our big weekend, we had secured commitments from 20 of those guys from that big weekend, which I think is, pretty impressive. And more impressive than that is none of these guys have wavered the entire time since they've committed to us. We had some guys that were picking up offers, and I'm always the first to tell guys, hey, if schools are offering you, great, celebrate it, put it out on Twitter. But I want to be very honest with them. What's your conversation like? Is there something we need to worry about? And at no point this entire fall did we have any worries or concerns with any of our guys. And I think that shows a little bit of just who we're trying to recruit, the guys we're going after, the families we're trying to be associated with, just for guys to be locked in, for that long. Because I think it's pretty well documented when we offer guys and we get in on some guys a little bit earlier than other schools. It's kind of a target for schools to come after some of those guys, right? They kind of let us do the evaluation and they start recruiting the guys. So I think that's something we're celebrating for sure. I'm proud of these guys in this class. It's something you just don't see a whole lot of. This is probably realistically the most uneventful signing day I've had in my. Nobody I've been worried about or concerned about. No hat games, any of that. Like Coach said, there's nothing wrong with that. We just prefer not to deal with that if we don't have to. And really, at the end of the day, our goal is still always going to be the same. We're going to try and build a roster through the high school ranks. We're going to try and develop kids. If we have some pressing or glaring needs, we're certainly going to look in the portal for those and try and address those. But at the end of the day, it's call us old school, call us different, whatever you want to call us. It's something we believe in. It's worked pretty well here. We're going to continue to do it that way and just keep working through those high school ranks. So with that, I'll open up to any questions anybody may have about specific guys or anything from there.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. We'll start with Elliot Clow, Rivals.com.
Hey, Tyler, appreciate the time today. And first thing I think everybody wants to know about is the quarterback in the 2024 class, James Reeser. I know he was another early commit, not quite the core four, but a guy that committed pretty early. What did you like about him? What stood out about his game?
Yeah, the fabulous fifth, if we're going to keep naming guys here in this class. James, it's interesting. James obviously lives in Jacksonville, but his parents are both from Wisconsin. He's still got a bunch of family in Wisconsin. So while they are Floridians, they're Midwesterners at heart. And James was a guy that, he had been to some other schools in the Big Ten and kind of reached out to us really prior to us recruiting him. And it was that Midwest connection. And once him and his dad came on campus for the first time, just getting around James and finding out a little bit more about him, obviously a phenomenal track athlete, 10.6'7" last year in the 100. Did that hurt as well? We fully expect him, and I think he'd echo it. We expect him to go sub 10.5 this spring. And when you do that at 6'3.5", 205 pounds, that's pretty impressive. James is still raw as a passer, but you can't deny the athletic ability that he has, and that's something that intrigued us, something maybe a little bit different than we have in the room currently, that we've had in the room in the past few years. And James is another kid. Once he came up here, I think it was the third time he was up here is when he committed to us. They were fully locked in. And he had plenty of other suitors and he had picked up some offers, but never wavered from day one committing to us. They've been up here, I think, all total now 5 times in the recruiting process, which that's not an easy trip from Jacksonville. But a kid that you really like, very focused, really mature kid. But just the athletic traits you see alone and some of the stuff he does, especially running, is what makes you excited about him.
Next question, Tyler, comes from Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Report.
Hey, Tom.
Tyler, wanted to ask you about the defensive line. 4 guys, and in particular, Anderson and Kennedy, who are, sons of NFL players, and just doing the projections with both those guys because they're not fully formed yet. Just what you guys saw recruiting those guys.
Yeah, I mean, really all 4 guys are completely different stories. And I'll start off with just Drew Campbell. Obviously, we knew a lot about Drew. I remember when Drew was in 7th grade, I think when Jack did his first camp here. There's a lot of mannerisms that are exactly the same about Drew and Jack, but at the same time, they're completely different people. Personality-wise, they couldn't be more polar opposite. Jack's quiet and stoic. Drew's got a little personality to him, and excuse my French, I think a little bit more shit to him on the outside. And Drew's a guy that's camped here a bunch. We've seen him grow up. His dad obviously was a college football player. We know about Jack. For us, it was a no-brainer. We wanted to take Drew as a football player. The kid's tough. He's relentless. He's a hard charger. That was a pretty easy one for us. Although he tried to make it kind of tough for us in the recruiting process. Probably didn't commit as early as we thought he would or would have liked him to, but eventually he did it on his own terms, and we're excited about that. Before I get to Joseph and Devin, Chima, he's from Dallas. That was a LeVar Woods find. Really raw, humongous human being. I mean, he's going to be massive once he gets here and gets in our weight room and really works with Coach Braithwaite and his staff. Had a really big year for us this year, but that was one that LeVar kind of dug up and got KB down there in the spring to see him, and both those guys really liked him. Great kid, really good family, extremely smart kid. Very respectful. You like when you're around him, but when you turn on the football film and when you see the kid, when he shook my hands, I'm pretty sure he was touching my elbow. He's just a massive human being, and I think he's just going to grow and get bigger. Devin, Devin was a guy. LeVar's been a little bit more out in Phoenix the last couple of years recruiting, and Jimmy Kennedy, his dad, who played for Penn State, first-round draft pick, had a really good career in the NFL and a great career in college. LeVar, had kind of he'd known Jimmy for a while, so that was one that popped up. And Devin's he's a basketball player. This second-year football player, still really raw, but what he did on his first year on the football field, and we worry sometimes when you're just a basketball player and you're playing football. Are you going to look like a football player, or are you going to play like a basketball player? Not saying basketball players are soft by any means, but they're very different sports. And Devin didn't look anything like that. And when KB had a chance to go down there and see him, and he came up here in camp this June too. He came up here and earned his offer, and we were down to him and another guy that we felt good about. We were going to offer one of them, and Devin was the guy, and he hopped on it pretty quick. And his dad's great. I mean, he's been through this process. He's played at a high level. He knows how to help prepare Devin, and it's been really cool to see. And Devin, talk about another really, really impressive kid. I feel like I'm talking to a 40-year-old when I'm talking to Devin. He does not seem like he's 18 at all, but he's a guy that's going to fit in really well into that D-line room. And then Joseph, he's a really soft-spoken kid. Dad obviously played in the NFL, two brothers that played Division I football. We talk about a freak athlete. What caught my attention is just his track stuff. His long jump and his triple jump numbers were unbelievable for a kid that's 6'5" and 210 pounds. They really don't make sense. And then as I started to dig further and watching the film, I'm texting Abdul Hodge, who recruited Joseph and KB, and I was like, hey guys, you need to check this kid out. Like, this kid's a little bit different. And still underdeveloped, and he's going to compete in track this winter and spring, and probably do really well. But once he gets here and just has a chance to put on the weight, his dad's a big human being, a very scary looking guy. Wouldn't want to mess with Benny, but he's also soft spoken, a little bit like Joseph. So it's kind of funny seeing that. Both his brothers are big, stout guys. So we have no doubt that once Joseph gets here and gets in the weight room, he's going to put on weight, but I'm pretty sure he's going to keep that athletic ability he has. I mean, some of the stuff he can do with that size, it's really intriguing and it's fun to see.
Tyler Tashman, Des Moines Register.
Hey Tyler, I hope you're doing well.
Good name.
Was just wondering, yeah, same to you. I appreciate it. Was just curious with obviously an offensive coordinator change coming, what the line of communication has been like with the guys on the offensive side of the ball, and then also just the fact that you were kind of speaking to their character, that they all remain committed even though there is some uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, part of my job and my role is anytime there's a change or anything that pops up, I've got to play damage control a little bit. And as soon as that news came out, I got with Coach Ferentz, told him, we need to touch base, specifically him, with every offensive commit. We just need to explain to him the situation. The biggest thing is, we were honest with him. We don't know who it's going to be. Brian's going to finish a year, and we're going to focus on the season. That's our main goal, is the players in the building and trying to win more football games. But at the end of the day, you got to trust and have faith in Coach Ferentz and this program and this culture, that we're going to replace it with somebody that's going to fit who we are and fits the values of Coach Ferentz and what he's looking for. And honestly, I don't think any of the conversations were really tough conversations. We were just being open and honest before anything really became public with the commits. Wanted to let them know. Obviously, started with James being at that quarterback position, but just telling them they stick with us. We're going to have a plan in place, but told them fully that nothing's going to happen until postseason. And really the whole way through, I think a lot of these guys, they understood, they're committing to the University of Iowa. They're committing to Coach Ferentz too. That's a big part of who they're committing to. And, just the tradition that we have here and the players in the building. A lot of these guys have been up here multiple times and have been around the players. So, we lean on those guys as well. But, you try and get in front of it. You try and be honest and, don't sugarcoat anything, and certainly don't lie to them about anything. And you hope that they stick with you. And thankfully all those guys did.
John Steppy, the Gazette.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for doing this. Wanted to ask you about the scholarship kind of squeeze that you have right now with that 85 number. Some places go really far above that. Are you comfortable going above 85? How far comfortable are you going above? What's kind of your philosophy on that?
John, wouldn't you love to know the real numbers?
Of
No,
course.
It's again, you can go back, we keep all these numbers and I have a whole spreadsheet based on the attrition we've had from fall all the way through the next fall. And history would tell you, we typically lose, 4 to 5 guys in the spring. So we're probably going to operate with those numbers. Again, just the COVID guys, that's been a little bit of a struggle in terms of maintaining the numbers that we want to maintain. I think it's much easier when we don't have to worry about that. But we'll take a look at everything. We'll take a look at everything post bowl game, and there's always 2 waves in the portal this time of year. There's the early wave, and then there's a wave after the bowl game. We don't want to lose anybody off our roster currently, but I'd be shocked if there's not 1 or 2 that may pop in the portal post bowl game. It's just the world we live in. That's kind of how things work. It is what it is. But I'm in constant communication with Coach Ferentz and our coordinators, especially this time of year, almost every single day. Especially we're waiting for decisions from those 6 guys in our roster currently. So I may panic a little bit more than Coach Ferentz, but when he says it's going to work out, I've got to trust him. He's got way more experience in this sport than I do. But it is something you're looking at, and there's no hard answer. There's no hard number. It's hard to say. We're going to continue to monitor things, and it'll be fluid, and we'll kind of see where the chips fall.
Adam Jacoby, Rivals.com.